And if we go into the RSI settings, you'll see that I've got it set at the standard RSI length of 14, and I've got the upper band set at 70, the lower band set at 30, and I'm showing them as a white line, and that's the only thing that we really need to see, is the RSI. We don't need to see anything else on here, so we can turn these off, and that is all that you need to see. So the inputs 14 close, SMA 14 and 2, okay, and you can see that we're going to be alerted to a scenario where price action is taking the RSI above the 70 line, which is indicating a potential overextension of the asset, and similarly at the bottom of the market when it comes down to under 30, potentially we have entered a market bottom, expecting the markets to move back. Now if we come to the top, which is where of all of the rest of the indicators are going to be, I'll just go through them in no particular order. First of all, we've got the Asian session high-low midlines, and if I turn that one on, and we'll go into the settings of this one, if you want to pause the screen here, and you'll see the indicator name, Asia session high-low midlines, and I haven't actually touched anything on this. There's nothing to change, just leave that as it is and just say OK. So here we can see that this is the Asian session, and then when the Asian session finishes, the high of the session, the low of the session, and the midpoint of the session continues to be shown for a few hours afterwards, okay, which is quite handy. If we then come to, I'm going to go to the next session indicator, which is the Lux Algo session indicator. And with the Lux Algo, you can see that the only one that I've got ticked on here is London, so this is the London session. You can see it also that I could actually put the Asia session on here, and the reason that I use the other Asian session indicator is that this one gives me the high-low midline extension as we continue to trade, whereas the Lux Algo indicator, as you can see, it doesn't actually do that. It just gives us the high and the low. So that is the settings for that indicator. Now before I put anything else on here, if I can just explain, because I'm London based, I'm actually focusing my trading with this system between the hours of the Asian session ending. So I am actually trading in this area here, which for me is about 7 o'clock London time in the morning, all the way through to the end of the London session in the afternoon. Okay, obviously we've got a crossover in New York in here that we could turn on if we wanted to, which I will for a second just to show you. If we put on New York, you can see that that will come in a second. So we will be trading some of the New York session, but I personally don't have that on because I don't take any trades after the end of the London session, purely because I don't want to be sat at my computer all day. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to be bringing in is we're going to be bringing in something that is going to be telling us when the market is potentially overextended either side, either overbought or oversold. And it's going to be a confluence, in other words, giving us a similar, hopefully, indication of where the market is to the relative strength index down here. And this is the X48 indicator, which I know a lot of you have seen me use many times. Now the X48 indicator is a very sophisticated and not complicated, it's just got an awful lot of features built into this indicator. And what I want you to do is, if you pause the screen here, and I'll count to 3 so you can take a screenshot of this. 1, 2, 3. And then if we come further down, and if you pause the screen now, 1, 2, 3, take a screenshot please of the settings. And then we continue further down, 1, 2, 3. Pause it again guys and take a screenshot if you need to. And we'll come down again. And that should be the last one that you need. So if you take a screenshot of that, and then if we go into style, you'll see that the only thing that I've actually got turned on here is the TMA bands up and down, which is these bands here that you see on the screen. If you come all the way further down, you see I've got nothing else. If you turn the lines off, and all that will happen is that these predicted lines across here, which actually I actually don't mean predicted. What I mean is these lines will actually move, okay? And I'm going to show you this on playback in a second. So if we go back into inputs again, the only thing that is relevant really to all of this is the average true range multiplier, because if I increase that to 5 and just give it a second, watch the bands on the screen, and you'll see the bands on the screen really widen out, okay? Now for this particular system, I want you to leave it on 3. Okay, and then just say okay to that. So what we've got here, before we continue with the system, you can see down here, you can see that the RSI crosses over 70, and then the RSI continues all the way up over 80, and when it gets really overextended, you can see that the TMA band is broken to the upside as well. Okay. Now, before I put any more indicators on this, I just want to explain what happens with real life trading, because with TradingView, what's very good, obviously we can do a replay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on a replay, and I'm going to go back to the end of Asia here. And I particularly want you to take notice of the behavior of the TMA bands, all right, because the TMA bands repaint, they move in line with price action, and then once this period of I believe it's 50 candles moves forward, when you move to the next candle, then this area here will become a fixed line, and when they become fixed, then they no longer start to move up and down. So what you can see here now will no longer change, all right, but what you see here is fluid. They will move up and down until the market moves further away into the future. And to show you that on in a slow way, let's just put it on 1 bar at a time and move forward, and just all I want you to do is just look at what happens to the angle of the TMA bands. As you can see, as price is coming down, the angle of the TMA bands come down. Okay, now if I really exaggerate that and speed this up a bit, now watch what happens. See how much these bands do actually move with price action, okay? And you can see clearly there that the bands are moving up, down, sideways, sort of mimicking price action as well, whereas the RSI underneath will never repaint. It's always fixed, and it's an oscillator that goes up and down consistently, whereas the TMA bands only become consistent when you get out of this area here. Okay, so what I just wanted to show you there was, if we speed that all the way up to 10 and bring it up to the end of the day, you now understand that the way that these TMA bands are now looking at the end of this trading session are not necessarily how they looked at the beginning of the trading session all the way back over here. And that's very, very relevant, because when we go and put on the next indicators, and in particular the indicator that's going to give you the buy and sell signals. The buy and sell signals are very particularly, well, should I say, the TMA bands are very relevant to the buy and sell signals. Okay, so I'll put the buy and sell signals on last. So the next thing I'm going to put on is another indicator called the RSI Div, standing for divergence. RSI Divergence -lib. So take a screenshot of that, please. And now you've got the screenshot, you'll see that the RSI length is 14, and I've done nothing with the style whatsoever. Okay, now let me explain what this is. What's happening here is, if I take this one here, which is a very, very clear example, you can see that the price action has made a lower low there. You made a low, you went up, you came down, you made a lower low, but the RSI actually made a higher high. So what you're getting is divergence in the RSI. And instead of having to manually look for this divergence, this indicator will actually just plot these arrows when it sees this divergence. Similarly, if you look at this downward slip here in the afternoon, you can see that the RSI is starting to go in a different way. It's starting to move back upwards. And yeah, very, very often, not always, but very often when you see RSI divergence, it's an early warning indicator that the market is probably going to start and move back upwards again, as you can see here. And the reason that I use this particular indicator is when you see a cluster of divergence in the RSI, it's a pretty good and reliable tool, and it's a flag and another confluence that not only are we in a very heavily oversold area and we've broken the lower TMA band, but we've also got divergence suggesting that maybe soon this movement down may start to move back up. Okay, there's no guarantee of anything, you know, these are just overlays and they're sort of signs on the road that we look out for before we decide on a potential entry. Now the next thing that I'm going to bring on is the exponential moving average, which is probably one of the top 10 indicators on MT4 and TradingView, and I'm simply using the 13 period close, smooth moving average, length 5, and I've plotted it with a yellow colour, as you can see, and I've made it just slightly thicker than standard. Okay, and I'm using a 13 period because it's a pretty good judge of when a market starts to make a short-term turn based on the time frame of the asset that we're trading, in which case with the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar is the 3-minute time frame. Okay, now just give me 1 second because I'm just going to stop this video and double check that everything is recording, and then I'll continue. Okay, it looks as though everything's going fine, so we'll continue with the recording. Right, so we've got the 13 period exponential moving average, and the final thing that I want to plot on the screen here is this indicator, which is going to give me my entry signals. And this is it's not the all important indicator because it's just one indicator that's making up a part of the system. Now it's the Smart Forex Buy Sell signal by Lucas. So if you take a screenshot of that, please. And then what you can see here is we can put on a few more signals on the chart, and spec, it stands for speculative. So it's a speculative buy and sell, it's a standard buy and sell, and it's a strong buy and sell. And what I want you to do is only have highlighted the buys, sells, and the strong buys and the strong sells. Okay, we're going to base this on the 1 hour time frame, which is very important. So if you want to take a screenshot of that, And when you've taken a screenshot of that, we are more or less ready to go with the system. So I'm going to close this out of the way, and you now have the setup. So I'm going to give you the entry rules now. What we're going to do is we're going to be looking for price action to come outside of the TMA bands, okay, either below, as in here, or above, as in here, or below, etc., etc. And we are also looking for the RSI at the same time to be moving into either an oversold area or an overbought area. And then we are looking, once we have this set up, for either a strong sell or a standard sell. Okay, so it's a strong sell or a standard sell, and we are going to enter when we get a close beneath the 13 period exponential moving average. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this, and I'm going to do this with every one of the 28 pairs, is we are going to go on a full replay so that we can see how these TMA bands would have played out throughout the session, because as you can see them now is not where they necessarily were. Sorry, they're not necessarily where they would have been in the live market, because these bands go up and down as we saw before, and where they were at the time that the signal is given is very relevant as to whether the trade would have been taken or not. Okay, now before we start, just a couple of more things about the entry rules. What we're going to do is we are going to be placing our stop. I'll give you an example here on this short entry. We would be entering on the open of this next bar here, and we're going to be placing our stop 2 pips above the most recent swing high. So you can see this is 5.9, yeah. So I'm going to move that to 7.9. There you go, 7.9. And what we're going to be doing is at a 1-to-1, we're going to be putting our stop at break even. So as soon as we get down to here, you're in a no-lose trade, and our target is going to be a 1-to-2. Okay. Now these are my trading preferences, and you're going to see as we go through this system, many times you're going to see 1-to-3, 4, 5, 6, anything up to 1-to-10. Okay. Now that's up to you to run through these back tests to see what is preferential for your style of trading, but for me 1-to-2 is more than sufficient. Now what else do we need to know? I've probably forgotten something, and I'm sure if I have, it will rear its head as we go through the back testing. So what we're going to do now is we're starting on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar. Obviously there is no trading during high impact news, so remember that. So if we see any real long extended range vertical bar candles, then that's an indication of high impact news. And this is Friday 21st, so this is just the day before yesterday. I'm doing this on Sunday, and you will probably be aware there was high impact news on Friday afternoon, which saw this big spike down. So we wouldn't have been taking a trade here, but if this was relevant at the time before the news, we would have been taking the trade there. It's just a few minutes before or after that I would not trade the news. So let's start the back testing and see where we go. So we're going to go select the bar, and we're going to go to the beginning of the session, which is the end of Asia. Pull all that along, and I'm going to put it on. Let's do the first one on 3 times speed, just to see how we can follow things. So you can see we've got the bands here, and let's just run the session first to see what would have happened. Now here you see we have a buy, but we don't actually have anything to go on, because our history only starts at the close of Asia. All right, so we would have needed to have seen a break of the TMA bands to even consider this. So we'll just continue for a while. Now there you go, there's London starting now. You can see you had a period of divergence, but we didn't get any buy. More divergence, a break of the TMA. There you get your buy there. So you can see at this point we were actually below the lower TMA band. We had the RSI divergence, we had our buy, and then we had a close above the 13 period exponential moving average. So that would have been our long position there, that entry there. We would have been placing our stop 2 pips below the swing low, which would have been 7.5, and we would have been targeting first of all a 1-to-1 for our break even. So we're now at break even and we're targeting a 1-to-2. So there's our first winning trade of the day. Okay, we'll continue. We're outside of the TMA band now, so if we get a sell we would be taking it. There's our sell there. So you can see we came above the TMA band. You can see the RSI was very heavily overbought. We got a strong sell and we got a close underneath the 13 period exponential moving average. So we're going to take a short position on this bar and we're going to place our stop just 2 pips above at 7.8. And our first port of call is going to be a 1-to-1 for a break even. There's your break even, and you can see we rapidly shoot down to a 1-to-2. So there's our second win of the day, and let's continue. You can see how we are now heavily outside of the TMA band and heavily oversold as well. We get divergence, more divergence, still outside, then we get a buy. So let's see what we would have done here. We can see that we were outside, we got divergence, we've got a buy. The RSI had already been heavily oversold. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a long position as soon as we cross above the 13 period EMA, which was here, and our stop is going to be 2 pips below at 6.9, so about there, and our first port of call is going to be a 1-to-1 to move our stop to break even. So we stay in this trade, stay in it. We might get a loss. It's not an infallible system, it's just an extremely good system. And there you go, that particular trade, we're still in it at the end of the day, but I'd be tempted to even call that a loss if I'm being fair. So the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, we had 2 wins and 1 loss. Okay, so we had +2, +2, -1, and if we put the totals here, that's going to be the sum of that. So we move on to the next pair, which is the Australian dollar, Canadian, Swiss. Okay, so what we'll do here is we will go into replay again, select bar, come into here, and away we go. Just wait for the bands to drop in, and that's the state of play when we sat down to trade. So we're waiting for a break. There we get a break, but now we're just into the session now. So let's just wait for a trade. There you got one trade there that we'll come to in a second and measure it. Let's just get to the end. So there's the first trade of the day. And I'm not even going to measure that. You can see that you got your 1 to 2 very easily. Well, you can now. So we're now outside the band. And we're going to measure this one. Let's just stop that there for a second. Now here what we had is we were outside of the band up here, and you got your sell, and we could not have entered that sell until we closed beneath the 13 period EMA, which I'm going to say was that bar there probably, and our stop is going to be 2 pips above there at 5.6. So your stop's going to be there. So you'd have been safe with this one. You'd have had a 1 to 1, so you would have had your break even okay, and you'd have already gone to your 1 to 2. So there's 2 trades there already and 2 wins. So we'll continue and wait for another signal. There's a buy outside the bands. We'll be taking that one. You would be in now. Let's see what happens with it. Just wait for this trade to play out. I think you'll have had your break even at this point, but we'll measure it in a second again. Okay, that's the end of the session, so let's just see where that would have got to. Our entry is going to be here at the opening of the bar there. Our stop loss is going to be at 7.7 down here, and we would have needed a 1 to 1 to get the break even. So you did get your break even, so we'll just ignore that trade because you can't lose. It may be that it goes to a winner at the open of Asia this evening, but for now we'll just call that a no trade. So I'm going to put this down as just 1 trade and one win. So 2. In fact, what we want to do with this, we want this to equal a few more trades, because there's probably more trades in some of the currency pairs, and we'll get that to do the same again, equal the sum of these trades. So you get 2 there. So this is individual totals, and this will be the sum total, and the sum total is going to be that plus that. Okay, equals that plus that. So we're up to 5 points at the moment. Okay, so let's now move on to the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Wait for everything to come in. There's the bands. And we are now going to replay. So let's wait for everything to come in. We're ready to go now, and let's start. So we come out of Asia, we wait for a break of the bands. There's London starting now. There's a break of the bands. There's a big jump down, and there we get a buy. So we're obviously going to be measuring that to see what would have happened. You'd be in that trade. Just patiently waiting. I'll wait till the end of the session before measuring that. We would not be reversing a trade, so we will wait for this trade to play out. Give it a little while longer to see where we end up. So once you're in a trade, just hold the trade. Don't let the market swing you around. You're probably going to be at least a break-even trade on this. Okay, so there we go. So we had a long trade here, and we could not have entered until we crossed the 13 period moving average, and our stop's going to be down at 24.8 yeah, which is there, and we would have needed a 1-to-1 to break even, and we would have needed a 1-to-2, which I'll leave it up to you. But my opinion is the chances of hitting here before hitting your 1-to-2 are probably a 95% chance that you're going to get that, because you only have that way to go when the market's open this evening. But to be fair, I will call that a flat trade, no problem. So this is going to be a 0 on the Aussie yen. So we'll have a 0 on there, and this is going to be equals the sum of all of these. So we're still at 5. So we'll now go to the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, and we will wait for the bands to come in. We'll move it across. What we will then do is we'll go and select the bar. We'll wait for the bands to come in again, and we'll go through a full replay. Right, we're ready to go. And as we come out of Asia, we dip, and we'd be waiting for a buy at the moment because we are below the bands. Heavy dip down, further dip down, RSI oversold with divergence. Just waiting for a buy. Market's moving down again, more divergence. Outside of the band. This would have been our strong buy here. So our stop is going to be 2 pips beneath the low of the session. And we'll just see how this plays out. Let me just pause it there to see whether we could potentially get into another trade with this, because what we'll do is we'll go a long position. A long position came here. We'd have gone in on the close of the bar just above the 13 period EMA. Our stop would have been at 5.9. Bit more than that. And you're well over, you're at 2.5 there. So there's your winning trade. There's your first winning trade with this one. Currently you can see we are back below the TMA. Nothing to say that we're going to get an entry. But if we are going to get an entry, we need to see that band penetration first. And here you see you've got your buy, and we're just waiting for a close above the 13 period exponential moving average, which we have here. Let's see if we get a stop out. Your stop's going to be underneath this area somewhere. Okay, we didn't get a stop out, as you can see. So just as the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, we'll call that a no trade. So with the Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar, we have one trade and one win. Just get this set back up again. It's the sum of all of these. So that's 7. Sorry, that should have been 2 there. Okay, let's go and do the Australian dollar, US dollar. We're going to wait for the bands to come in, and then we're going to select the bar. We're going to go to the end of Asia, and we're going to start the replay. Just wait for the bands to come in again, and let's start. There we go. So we are in play. We broke the bands, heavily oversold, divergence, you get your buy. You may see a stop out on this. Let's let it play out. Looks as though we've got a win on that trade. I'm just going to pause it there to see if we can get in another one. So your buy would have been here. Your stop would have been 2 pips beneath there. Would have been at 9. Say 9.1. You're aiming for 2, which is up here. Not there yet. Let's see where we go. So we are now at break even. So if price comes back down to here, it's a break even trade. There's your break-even trade. And there's a good thing about break-even trades. It saves your loss. Here you can see that we've had a buy, but your entry is not going to be until you actually close above the 13 period moving average here. I'll just let that play out before we measure this. Okay, so with this one, we had our buy here. So we would have entered on the close of this bar here. Our stop would have been 2 pips beneath the swing low, so would have been 4.9. About there. Would have been going for a 1 to 2, which you would have got there. So with this one, we had 2 trades, and we had 1 winner and 1 break even. So that's Australian dollar, US dollar, where we've had a 2-point win. Okay, so we're now up to 9 points. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through all of the other currencies and mark them all up for you. I'll pause this video and I'll come back when everything's marked up, and we'll see where the session would have ended. Okay, I've just gone through all of the currency pairs now, and I will run through them with you very quickly. We did the Australian pairs, so we'll come into the CAD Swiss. You can see there was a loss. You can see we had 2 wins and a loss. We had 2 losers. We had 2 winners. No trade. We had a break even. No trade. We had a winning trade. We had a winning trade and a break even. We had 2 winning trades. We had a losing trade. We had a losing trade and a break even trade. We had a break even trade. No trade. We had a break even trade and we had a winning trade. We had 2 winning trades. We had no trade. We had a winning trade. We had a winning trade. No trade. We had a trade still in play, going quite well. We had a winning trade, we had a losing trade, and when we bring those across into Excel, you'll see for the full trading session in one day you'd have passed nearly 3 challenges with 29 points, 29% profit, risking 1% on each trade, targeting a 1-to-1 for a break even and a 1-to-2 for a risk reward. Okay, I hope that helps everybody, and if you've got any questions, at Chris the Trader on Telegram, send me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed the system, and if I can help you in any way, just get in touch. Thank you.